Few relationships in history are as long, complex, or honestly as utterly fascinating as that between the United Kingdom and France. They're neighbours, separated only by a narrow stretch of water. Yet, for centuries, that water felt like a vast ocean, dividing two very different worlds. This famous rivalry is written into the very fabric of our national stories. It's a tale of kings and queens, of empires and revolutions, and of grand battles that shaped the destiny of Europe. From the Norman conquest of 1066, which forever tied our islands to the continent, a long and often bloody competition for power, influence, and territory began. It was a rivalry that defined us, forcing each nation to sharpen its wits and its swords against the other. This historic competition wasn't just a simple squabble over land, it was a clash of cultures, ideas, and ambitions. The 100 Years' War, a sprawling conflict that lasted well over a century, saw English kings lay claim to the French throne. Later, the Napoleonic Wars pitted British sea power, commanded by heroes like Nelson, against Napoleon's mighty land armies that had conquered much of Europe. These were epic struggles for dominance. Each side saw the other as the ultimate obstacle to its own greatness. This history of conflict is so deep that it has left an indelible mark, creating stereotypes and a sense of friendly and sometimes not so friendly competition that persists to this very day. Yet, something remarkable happened. These eternal rivals learned to become allies. The 20th century brought new, more dangerous threats that made old quarrels seem petty. Facing the rise of an aggressive Germany, Britain and France signed the Entente Cordiale in 1904. This friendly understanding was not a formal military alliance, but it was a monumental shift. It was an agreement to set aside colonial disputes and stand together. It was a recognition that despite all their differences, they had more to gain by cooperation than by conflict. This understanding was soon put to the test, and it held firm through the brutal trials of two world wars where British and French soldiers fought and died alongside one another on the battlefields of Europe. This transformation from foes to friends is the key to understanding the modern relationship. It's a partnership built not on a clean slate, but on top of centuries of history. That history has not been erased. The old rivalries can still bubble to the surface, but they're now balanced by a shared past of immense sacrifice and cooperation. It means that when leaders from London and Paris meet, they're not just discussing trade or security, they're continuing a conversation that has been going on for 1,000 years. It's a relationship of equals, of two proud nations who know each other's strengths and weaknesses perhaps better than anyone else. This shared journey from battlefield to briefing room is what makes their connection so uniquely compelling. Even in an age of close cooperation, the old spirit of rivalry has a habit of making its presence felt. The decision of the United Kingdom to leave the European Union in 2016, known as Brexit, brought many of these tensions back to the forefront. Suddenly, arguments that had been settled within the EU family were now direct bilateral disputes. There were fierce disagreements over fishing rights in the Channel, with French fishermen feeling betrayed and British vessels asserting newfound control. These arguments weren't just about economics, they were about sovereignty and national pride, echoing the historic struggles for control over the very same waters. It was a clear sign that old sensitivities had not disappeared. This friction is also visible in the media and in popular culture on both sides of the Channel. British newspapers love a good story about French intransigence, while French commentators often portray the UK as isolated and struggling after Brexit. These caricatures are easy and familiar, playing on centuries-old stereotypes. The French are seen as bureaucratic and protectionist, the British as pragmatic but perhaps a little arrogant. While often humorous, these portrayals can sometimes sour the public mood and make genuine political disagreements feel more personal and bitter than they need to be. They are the modern-day echoes of a time when our nations saw each other not as partners, but as obstacles to be overcome. The ongoing crisis of migrants crossing the English Channel in small boats is perhaps the most difficult and emotional issue of all. For the UK, it is a matter of border control and national sovereignty. For France, it is a complex humanitarian and policing challenge along its long coastline. This has led to accusations and frustrations on both sides. London has sometimes accused Paris of not doing enough to stop the boats from leaving, while Paris has pointed to the UK's own policies as a factor attracting the migrants. It's a deeply complex problem with no easy answers, and it requires a level of trust and cooperation that can be difficult to maintain when political pressure at home is high. These modern disputes show that the UK-France relationship is not a simple, straightforward friendship. It's more like a family relationship, full of affection and shared history, but also prone to spectacular arguments. The issues of trade, migration, and political direction are real and significant. They require constant negotiation and a willingness to understand the other's point of view. The ghost of the old rivalry means that when disagreements arise, they can feel more significant. It adds a layer of scrutiny and historical baggage to every negotiation, ensuring that the path to agreement is rarely smooth, but always important. The challenge is to manage these tensions without letting them overwhelm the much deeper need for partnership. After several years of rather frosty relations following the Brexit vote, a noticeable change has taken place. The arrival of a new government in the United Kingdom in 2024 has paved the way for a deliberate reset with France. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Emmanuel Macron have made a clear effort to move beyond the arguments of the past and focus on areas of common interest. This shift began with high-level meetings in Paris, designed to rebuild trust and establish a more constructive tone. The goal was not to reverse Brexit, but to forge a new, more pragmatic and cooperative post-Brexit relationship. It was a clear signal that both sides recognized the need to work together in an increasingly unstable world. This renewed spirit of cooperation has been powerfully demonstrated through a series of symbolic events. In 2024, we celebrated the 120th anniversary of the Entente Cordiale. This was marked by a truly historic moment. For the first time ever, French guards participated in the changing of the guard ceremony at Buckingham Palace, while British guards did the same at the Élysée Palace in Paris. Later that year, Prime Minister Starmer attended the Armistice Day ceremony at the Arc de Triomphe, a gesture of deep respect and solidarity. These were not just photo opportunities, they were carefully planned acts of statecraft, designed to send a powerful message to the world and to their own citizens that the bond between the two nations remains strong. Behind the public ceremonies, practical cooperation has been deepening, especially in the critical areas of defense and security. With uncertainty surrounding the future commitment of the United States to European security, London and Paris have found themselves drawn closer together. As Europe's only two nuclear powers and its most significant military forces, they have taken a leading role in coordinating support for Ukraine. In early 2025, they jointly convened summits with allies to organize military aid, demonstrating a shared resolve to stand against aggression. This collaboration is a stark reminder that when it comes to the hard realities of defense, the UK and France are indispensable partners, their historic military rivalry now completely transformed into a vital modern alliance. Of course, this warming of relations does not mean that all problems have vanished. Difficult issues like managing migration in the Channel still require constant and patient negotiation. New travel rules, such as the UK's electronic travel authorization scheme starting in 2025, will need to be managed carefully to avoid disrupting the flow of tourists and business travellers. However, the key difference is the atmosphere in which these issues are discussed. The focus has shifted from public disagreement to a quieter, more determined effort to find joint solutions. A major UK-France summit is planned for 2025 to build on this progress, showing a shared commitment to making the relationship work for the benefit of both countries. Ultimately, the relationship between the United Kingdom and France matters far beyond their own borders. In a world facing numerous crises, from conflict in Europe to climate change, their ability to work together is of global significance. As permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, leading members of NATO and major world economies, their joint action carries immense weight. When London and Paris speak with one voice on an international issue, the world listens. Their partnership acts as a vital pillar for European security architecture, providing a core of military and diplomatic strength that helps to ensure the stability of the entire continent, especially at a time of geopolitical uncertainty. This partnership is a unique blend of soft and hard power. It's founded on deep cultural ties, celebrated through events like the Entente Littéraire Prize, and the fact that we are each other's closest and most visited neighbour. But it's also built on the hard-nosed reality of shared security interests. Our intelligence agencies, MI6 and its French counterpart, the DGSE, cooperate so closely that they recently held their first ever joint public lecture, a sign of the deep trust that exists behind the scenes. This combination of cultural appreciation and security collaboration creates a uniquely resilient alliance, one that can withstand the inevitable political disagreements that arise. Looking to the future, the UK-French alliance will be essential in navigating a complex global landscape. The need for a united European response to challenges from Russia and the importance of managing economic competition from other global powers will demand ever closer coordination. Their joint leadership on Ukraine is a powerful example of what can be achieved. By pooling their diplomatic influence and military resources, they can shape events and defend the international rules-based order that both nations helped to build. Their relationship serves as a pragmatic model of how two proud, sovereign nations can work together for the greater good, even outside formal structures like the EU. In the end, the story of the UK and France is one of a rivalry that never truly ended, but was instead transformed into something far more complex and valuable, a critical partnership. They remain competitors in some areas, but they are essential allies in almost all others. They are two old nations shaped by 1,000 years of shared history, who have learned that they are stronger together than they are apart. Their arguments may be loud, but their agreements are profound. For Europe, and for the wider world, the health and strength of this historic, complicated, and utterly indispensable relationship is more important than ever.